Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Angie, and I'm beyond excited for this episode. Madison is just this golden light that was such a pleasure to chat with. We cover so many different topics, ranging from how technology and media hinders us, the pros and cons of being exposed to so much content, art, and artists, the role that music plays in memory, which leads us to later talking about how Madison's music keeps the memory of her late friend alive. This episode can be difficult for some listeners, so please don't forget to take care of yourself. Alongside everything else that has already been listed, we touched on so many more topics like getting out of your own way, romanticizing a 9-to-5 life, the meaning of home, and practicing happiness. Now, I can keep going on, but that wouldn't be as fun as just giving you the chance to listen for yourself. Find Madison's music on all streaming platforms. How are you? How have you been?
I am good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today because I just love your music. And I was like, oh my God, I need to pick this girl's brain.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to be on here too because I think that there's a lot of mental health stuff with music that people don't, realize, and I'm such an advocate for it, like for my own personal mental health and my artist friends. I think this will be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like mental health is sung about very often, but it's not talked about very often, which kind of, like leaves this gap in our conversations where people kind of just assume that artists are okay because they have music as their coping mechanism. But if you're in the music industry, which I remember reading about for you, if you're in the music industry, it's very anxiety inducing, but music, like anxiety relieving. So it's like this duel between anxiety and non-anxiety and music and the industry itself. So I'm just going to plunge right into it. How do you cope with that when like music is the very thing that helps you, but the industry is the very thing that hinders you?
Oh, it's tough. I mean, like I wish there was one thing that helped it, because that's not the case. I know, like I have a really awesome family, and that helps walking the dogs. But I think, like honestly, just learning to say no and like shutting your phone off. I feel like my phone is the worst thing in the whole world. And if I wasn't a musician, I would literally just have my landline and like nothing else. Because I hate that I wake up and the first thing I do is I like, okay, did I get likes? What were those likes like? And like it's so validating, and the most validating part should just be like creating the music, but it's the reaction to people online, and that's so toxic for us because now we're literally asking strangers, and especially with an app like TikTok where people just have no filter. They are so ruthless. There's also like a really beautiful side of TikTok, but there's this side of TikTok where it's just like people are keyboard heroes and like warriors, and they don't care what they say to you. Like they just have to say their piece. It is so brutal. And so like I think there's like no perfect way of getting over it, and like you can shut your phone off and still think about it, but stepping away, I think like that is the best thing that any of us could do. And whether it's like music or podcasting or like acting or anything to do with like putting your music online or putting your content online, the best thing we can do is like upload and walk away.
Yeah, but then how do you like not keep thinking about it? Because
I know.
I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, Ange, don't check your phone. Okay, fine, I'll just check my phone. And it's
and then it's just like an endless loop, right? Like you're scrolling, and then you go down a different path, and then you're like, oh well, this person's doing what I'm doing. Oh my God, their numbers are so much better than me. Okay, now I'm just not gonna get out of bed today. And it's highly addictive, the phone and like the social media and the amount of content that we're getting, which also kind of plays a huge part in I don't know if it's comparison or just feeling like you can't keep up, but like people are constantly putting out songs, people are constantly putting out videos, people are constantly putting out podcasts. I mean, like it's like kind of the same in the podcast world, that it almost feels impossible to keep up, and that you're just lost in this sea of creators, and there's nothing special about what you're putting out. And that's not true. Like everything people put out. Yeah, it's not true, but it's the way that social media has like caused us to feel is that we're not special. We're just one in a billion or one in 8 billion or whatever it is now. But
it really does not make you feel special at all. And like, honestly, I must say there's a lot of pros and cons with this era. And I've talked about this before, but the best thing about this era that I do enjoy is that there seems to be space for everyone to be successful.
Yes.
Which is really nice. And it's like an era for independent artists and anyone in the arts industry. So that's really great. But at the same time, everyone's putting content out so often and you're like
I
getting
know.
consumed. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's hard to, think about, is this really my idea or is it someone else's idea? And then like you get stuck on that whole like anxiety, even though I mean art inspires art. So I don't even know if that's necessarily true, but it
I
definitely
know.
question yourself.
Well, even like on that, sometimes I feel like as a songwriter, you don't write a song because you're like, oh, this speaks to me. You're like, oh, well, this is trending, so this is what I have to do, and it's like a sellout, and like that's so terrible. But art, I mean, like art does inspire art, and when you hear a song that you love, you're like, wow, I want to do something like this. Or you get told you're like, hey, I want a number one, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, well, let's write that, and it's like where do you draw the line of inspiration and then like straight up copying? And that's a
But
tough
in
one too.
your case, your number one is also the very same song that you resonate with the most,
I
right?
know, which is so funny because it's now my favorite when I maybe like 4 year, well, I guess it would have come out in 2018, so like 2 years ago. I was over it, I was a young artist when I had written it. I was like, oh, I've gotten better. I'm more complex. This song is just so old and I'm over it. But it was written about somebody super, super special to me, who recently took her life. And now it feels like a memory that I get to listen to all the time. And now I've kind of regained some appreciation for the lyrics when I listen to it. I'm like, wow, those are actually really complex and they match my situation better now. And it's my favorite song, which is also so funny because it seems to be everybody's favorite song. And it's so simple. I literally wrote it in 45 minutes. We had It was terrible. We woke up at 2 in the morning. We were gonna go for this hike to watch the sunrise. She'd kind of gone through some like life-changing stuff. I had just had my first heartbreak. It was so traumatic and like so sarcastic. But I was like, let's go and watch the sunrise and wash away the darkness and have like a new day be born in front of us. And so we hiked up and like in the last 45 minutes, she's like, hey, can we like turn the music off? I just want to like enjoy the silence. And we just sat and we like cried at the top of this mountain and watched the sunrise. And it was so cathartic. And I was like, this is the most incredible experience of my entire life. I'm going to go write a song about it at 45 minutes. Moments in the Mountains was written. And then I was like, okay, well, this is done. And then the BC Winter Games had reached out to me asking for a theme song. I was like, well, this is what BC is. It's like growing up in the mountains. It's creating our memories and our childhood and reminiscing on what was held in these mountains. And so it just kind of like fit perfectly and people loved it. Like it made sense to them. It felt like childhood. It felt like nostalgia. And I was like, well, this is so simple. Like, how do you like this? I write complex stuff. Why do you like that? And it's also changed the perspective of writing music. Like it doesn't always have to be so special. It could just be like one simple thing and people love it.
Yeah, but simplicity is special. I feel like we get really consumed with the idea that things need to be really complicated. And I'm so guilty of that. I remember writing a song with a few friends and being like, this needs more metaphors.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or like, I feel like I've kind of gotten over this, but sometimes you get this idea of like this line when you come into a session, you're like, okay, this is what I want the song to be about. And then you get controlling and you're like, no, okay, well, we need to go back to like what this was about. And you like hold the song back because you need it to be about this. And you don't like step out of the way for the song to just like do what it needs to do. And so that's been a big learning curve as well, is to like just get out of the way. Get out of the way of the song and like don't hold anything to it.
How do you push yourself to get out of the way when you have to do that?
Um, it was tough. I feel like it's gotten easier with maturing, but it's just like a matter of, okay, who is this song for? Is it for me? Is it for the listeners? Do I like sometimes songwriting is like so self-serving.
Mhm.
But when you just realize you're like, I'm here to write the best song I can, it's a lot easier to just step out of the way. You're like, this is my job. I want to create the best thing I can. I'm with amazing people who have amazing ideas. If I step in the way, I'm going to squash their opinion and their awesome ideas. So just, sit down and collaborate. It's hard
Collaborating
though.
is hard. Collaborating is
Collaborating
hard.
is hard.
But you
Yeah.
brought up who it's for. Who is it for? You or the listeners?
You know, um, I guess it depends. Like, there's a lot of artists who do it for themselves. I grew up dancing, so I was a really big ham. I went on stage because I wanted to make people feel good about themselves. That's why I picked up a guitar. I was like, I'm gonna sing and make people feel good. So I feel like I write music and I sing because I have a story to tell, but really I love to entertain people. I love making people laugh. I love making people smile, walking away from a show feeling good. And so for me, like creating is for the listeners. And especially in a time like, the last 2 years, it's been super crazy. And content creation is like an escape for people. And so, and that's kind of what I loved about the golden age is like, they said that music was to distract people from the biggest depression ever. And so I feel like no better time than now to create music and content to distract people from a very scary situation.
It's true. And I mean, at the end of the day, distract yourself as well and like create this space in from the comfort of your microphone. It's like,
right.
It's so nice to be able to escape with music, but then the music industry brings you right back, which brings us back around to the beginning of this conversation where it's like, it's really difficult because again, it's a duel and it's hard to get away from that duel because music is what makes you feel better, but then the industry is what doesn't make you feel better.
Yeah. Well, and like there's definitely ways around it, like finding the right team and the right people, I feel like. But that's so hard because everybody's trying to make it. Everybody wants to be a superstar. So everybody's looking for a good team. And I think the team doesn't even necessarily need to be like management and labels and stuff like that. It can be like another artist friend who's going through the same thing that you guys like check up on every day. And you're like, hey, you also hate TikTok? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're in this together. Yeah. Let's hate it together. And so I think like that's another thing too, is like getting over the competitiveness of the industry and just learning to like support each other. And it's going to be a lot easier when you do that. And that's also another thing that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it feels a lot better when you like the people you work with versus feel like you're competing with them, which is tough.
Yeah, which brings us to like the idea of who to work with and these opportunities. And opportunities, they are hard to turn down. I take on so many opportunities because I'm scared that I'm not going to get another one.
Yeah.
And like, okay, this is it. Okay, this one's it. Okay, this, and all of a sudden I'm doing like 10 things at once. And I'm like, obviously not putting 100% into all the things I'm doing because you can't do that. I'm only putting in 20% into this, 20% into that. So how do you know when to say no to an opportunity and walk away, especially when it seems so perfect?
I think that's a tough one. I think that it kind of comes with time too, right? Like being able to, it's like almost seeing opportunities as red flags, like X's. You're like, okay, I did that. I don't need to do it again. And like you just start to like see things as the same thing and you're like, did this help my career to begin with? Like, no. Okay, well, I can comfortably say no. Researching an opportunity to like, we need to start valuing ourselves as creators. I think a lot of people are just like, oh, we'll get a real job. And you're like, no, this is a job. And I need to value that I have an opinion, I have knowledge, I can do some, research and take some time. And so I think, asking the right questions for an opportunity, looking back and being like, is this actually going to help my career? Or is this going to be like a time filler? Time fillers suck. Then you go through it and you're like, wow, that was a waste of time. I hate myself. And that's the last thing you want to be saying. And so I think, just like really analyzing what's it going to do for you? Is it worth it in the long run? Do you get paid? Like all of these things. And I think once you start like checking off your box or like lists or your boxes, you start to realize that like, this is not a good opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you brought that up because a lot of the opportunities that I bump into, well, I don't think that any opportunity is a waste of time. I do think there's always something you take from it. But
totally.
I get what you're saying. And it's like, you can spend that time doing something that might progress you even more or something that you enjoy more.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know who you're going to meet. And like, you're totally 100% true. It's all about perspective. And you can make any great opportunity feel crappy just by the way that you're thinking about it, or a really crappy opportunity feel great because you're like super positive. But there are definitely opportunities that are going to, help you a little further in your career.
Oh yeah. But that's a thing, being in the arts industry. I don't know if you've ever ran into this, wedge, but my biggest thing is that I work, quote unquote, like 5 full-time jobs, but none of them pay.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't really work. And then that like makes me feel like I'm falling behind and I'm not like catching up with my friends. And then you got my mom like on my shoulder being like, you got to get a job that you're actually getting paid for. And I'm like, oh my God, soon. I promise soon.
Well, and it's tough. Like the friends who aren't in the art industry don't understand because the payoff is so much bigger in this industry too when it happens.
When it
But
happens,
when it happens, which is it's a tough thing because it might not.
it's an
But
investment.
it is an investment, and people who just are content with like that 9 to 5, they don't understand it because it's just a different passion, right? Like, and it's so funny, totally off topic and like random. But I saw this thing that said, "Why can't I romanticize my 9 to 5 job either?" And you can, like, you just gotta
Yeah,
pick. You
yeah.
gotta pick what makes you happy, and like, just let everybody else pick their own thing too. And I think that has kind of been a weird judgment on the entertainment industry is that people don't let them just enjoy their, the struggle. So,
Yeah, that's literally what my roommate and I talked about the other day. Well, actually, it was like a month ago, but she was um, like, what's wrong with the 9 to 5? What's wrong with coming home in time for dinner? And like, eventually, when you have a family, being with that family, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's
yeah.
really amazing. Honestly, I feel like there's this whole like, be a boss, like girl boss, blah blah blah, like
Yeah,
that whole
7 figures a year. Like, no.
yeah, on TikTok. And it's like, bro, if you're not working a 9 to 5, you're working 24/7. It's
Yeah.
it's not easier. And it's
Yeah.
like you gotta wait for the payout if there even is a payout. Because like sometimes I feel like it feels like there never is. And I'm sure that there is eventually if you stick to it. But it is hard to stick to it, especially when you have so many important things, bills, rent, phone, car, whatever else. And it's
Oh,
like
totally.
it's hard to manage. And I feel like social media has really glorified this idea that not working a 9 to 5 is better and it's easy. And it's like, all you got to do is buckle down and like put in a little bit of work. But that's not the case. That's like years of commitment to
Yeah.
risks over and over and over, and being okay with failure and being okay with rejection and being okay with like falling down 10 times just to like kind of get back up and like kind of like keep crawling forward because it's hard.
Yeah. It is hard. Did you see that thing? I feel like it was all over the internet where Kim Kardashian was like, people don't want to work anywhere. Like, that's you don't want to work anywhere. Everybody else is working 100 times harder than you. Like, what do you mean? Like, you see people. I hate social media because I see people all the time posting, constantly grinding. Their content is amazing and they haven't had that break. And my heart hurts for them because I know what that feels like. I can't imagine, like how they feel. And people just don't realize how hard content creators are working 24/7. And when you're not creating content, you're looking at other people's content and then you're trying to recreate it. And so it is a lot of work. It is a lot of time, but if you love it, I guess it's worth it.
It's not just content though. It's like if it's not content, it's something else. So it's like, oh, okay, like my content with this person is like kind of similar, but this person looks so much better than I do. And this person
Yes.
has like more followers and more friends. And then like you start focusing on such superficial markers and it's difficult not to. I mean, like the whole thing with Kim Kardashian right now with her saying like that whole debacle about her saying that she lost 16 pounds to fit into her Met Gala dress.
Oh my gosh.
I have a little bit of controversial opinion on that though, because I don't know if you're keeping up with like what Lily Reinhart, I think that's her name. That's how you pronounce it.
Oh, from Riverdale?
Yes, her, what she said about Kim Kardashian. But
No, I didn't.
essentially, once Kim Kardashian said that she like cut out carbs for this month to fit into this dress and she lost 16 pounds. Mind you, I don't actually know much about this. I just kind of know briefly what Lily posted and I don't really know how Kim said it or anything, but essentially Lily posted saying, hey, like we got to stop supporting these influencers who promote the idea that we have to restrict food. And it's so stupid because like you can't do that to yourself. And I so agree. Restricting is so bad. That being said, it's really nice to know that doesn't just happen naturally. That body doesn't just happen naturally.
Yeah. Well, and like I think that's been another like controversial thing for the Kardashians is that a lot of them have denied having work, and it's pretty obvious when you see before and after photos of beautiful young Kylie Jenner to now. Like lips don't happen like that naturally. Like I'm so sorry. I wish mine would when I woke up, but they don't.
And no shade if you like
Like
do
yeah,
surgery or anything. It's just it's like it's really disheartening to see influencers be like, nope, this is my natural body. When it's like, bro, you're getting paid thousands upon thousands of dollars, if not millions, to do that. Like it doesn't happen naturally.
Well, because then it makes the people who do take pride in their natural, beauty and looks feel not good enough. And I mean, I'll be honest. I've always wanted to get, my lips done or the injection in the nose or whatever. Like it's super easy and accessible now. But being honest about it, I think is like super important for people who can't do it or can't afford to do it or won't do it, to know that like that's how they look. They look amazing. We can appreciate it, but it's not real. And it's not attainable for everybody.
And I mean, at the end of the day, if Kim is going out there and saying, yeah, like I restricted eating to like get this body, let's face it, that is a mental health struggle that she's going through. And again, I don't keep up with the Kardashians. I don't even follow them on Instagram, but like, it's easy to acknowledge that when you're restricting yourself and you have a bad relationship with food in order to fit into a certain item of clothing, you're going through something mentally.
Yeah. Well, and I can't imagine what that's like to see your photo on every single tabloid as well, right? Like even if I see a tagged photo on Instagram, I'm like, oh my God, I look terrible. But like imagine seeing millions of those photos.
Millions. And it's like half of them aren't controlled. And it's scary. It's scary to be a creator, the more people know you, the more hate that you get. That is what it is. The more love you get, the more hate you get. So that's the other thing. If you're going to be in the arts industry, you got to be okay with people disliking you. And that's hard because when you're comparing yourself, you got to make sure that you love yourself enough for people who don't love you.
Totally. And that love will change too. Some days you'll love yourself more and some days you'll love yourself less. I feel like
it's like this roller coaster of self-love, and it's difficult. But this conversation reminds me of one of your songs, Best Part of Me.
Yes. So, oh my gosh.
This one line at the beginning of the song that you said, I'm going to read it off my little notes.
Yeah.
Drowning in my thoughts, but I can't ignore that I think I kind of like it. And God, that is so relatable. That is so relatable. Like sometimes it's just easier to drown and to just like be in your feelings and your dark feelings and sulk in them. And you get kind of this attachment towards those feelings. And that's difficult.
Yeah. I think for myself, I know when I have my down days, and this is like totally just speaking from personal experience, because I know mental health is so unique to everybody. Yeah. But anxiety is so addictive. It is so addictive to feel down. And I know I'm definitely not the only person who, when they're feeling sad or depressed, they put on a sad song to make it worse.
Oh yeah. Are you kidding me? Yes.
Why do we do it? It's so self-indulgent. But that's kind of what the song was about. It was like a lot of us fight that feeling. And I think it just, stifles it and, makes it worse in the long run. And just enjoying it and learning to feel that ride is part of the healing process. It's staying in bed and crying all day is like super important.
I feel like the reason we listen to sad songs is because we get this sense of like relatability. Like we can relate to these people, and like, you're not alone. And there are other people out there who feel this way. And it's like, sometimes it's so hard to put your thoughts into words. So when you hear a song expressing those exact thoughts, it's like, oh my God, it's cathartic.
It is cathartic. It totally is. It's like no different than watching a sad movie do like a breakup movie after you've just gone through a breakup. You're like, oh my God,
your ice cream, your shit.
That's totally what it is. And that's what Best Part of Me was. Like, it was just this, it's okay to feel not okay and to just let yourself cry. Cause I went into the studio, I didn't know these writers. It was a Nashville new experience for me. I'd taken a 45-minute Uber. There was like $300 out there. I was already like crying. And they're like, well, what do you want to write about today? And I just like sat on his carpet and I was like, I just want to cry. I just want to lay on this floor. And I want to cry today. And they're like, well, let's dive into this. And I was like, oh my God. But,
that is hard, especially to dive into those feelings in the height of when you're feeling them. That's a lot of work. But does that mean Best Part of Me was written under those circumstances?
Oh, yeah. It was such a pile up too. I was staying at a shared Airbnb where the day before, one of the other room people had left some fecal matter in the bathroom. And
Love that.
so that was how it started. And then there was like gunshots because it was like on the gentrified side of Nashville. And I was like, Mom, I need to get out. I'm like 21 and my mom still helps me, but I was 21 at the time, which I'm really proud of. My mom's helped me. But I was like, I need to do Airbnb. So she gets me to this other place that's like oh my gosh, probably like a 75-year-old building. And I'm like just washing my dishes. All of a sudden, the sink starts clogging and like all the water. It was just like one of those trips where like one thing after another happened. And so when it was time to create music, I had already spent all of my energy just trying to survive in Airbnb. Yeah, just trying to do the dishes and like wash tomato soup bowls and stuff like that. And so by the time I got to writing, like I was already just exhausted and didn't want to be there, wanted to quit, wanted to give up. What was the point? And yeah, then the song was born. So, it's always worth pushing through, I guess.
I mean, yes, definitely. It's always worth pushing through, but it's like, it's really nice that all of that struggle was able to be poured out into this amazing song that I absolutely love. And I was listening to it. And again, it was just so relatable because when we've been happy, like when we go through like a happy phase, it's like, wow, I haven't been sad in a really long time. And then you start like getting yourself consumed into that. And then it's like, wow, I haven't been depressed in a really long time. What is going on? I don't know if I like this anymore because like there's something about relating to other people who are depressed.
Oh, I know. It's like, I feel like depression is super, and like being depressed is different than feeling depressed too. And I feel like that's been something I've learned because I've never been depressed, but I've definitely had depressed moments.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I've had friends who have been clinically depressed, really struggled. Obviously, my friend, she took her life. That is such a different feeling. And I will never be able to experience that or like be able to share my own personal experience, but I can empathize with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that when she would be down, it was almost, and I don't know if it was just a weird like way of trying to connect with her and make her feel more comfortable, but immediately I would feel depressed. Like it was almost contagious, or it was like this way of trying to make her feel comfortable, and I think that sometimes it probably comes off as insensitive for a lot of people that do that to people who are struggling with mental health. But I actually think it's a way for people to be like, oh, well, if I feel this way, then we can feel this way together and you can feel comfortable with me. But it's so weird. The mind is such a weird thing.
I'm so sorry to hear about your friend.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a learning experience. I think losing somebody to suicide it's such a unique adventure in its own, and there's a lot of mental health that it plays on for I think we're called suicide victims, but there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of regret. I wish I could go back in time, a lot of like personal sadness and heartbreak, but it's been definitely an opportunity to talk through my music, talk through my social media platforms, that it's so important to talk about, because when we talk about it, then people who are feeling it and struggling it will feel more confident and safe to talk about it with the other people. Because I think that there's a stigma. There's always going to be a stigma around, depression and suicide, because I think it scares people. We don't understand what goes on in the mind. So it's just better to pretend like it doesn't exist. And so I think it's really important to talk about it in any way so that the conversation is just easier throughout time.
I mean, that's like a huge, I guess a learned lesson to like talk about, to always talk, because it's difficult. I feel like with the stigma, people are scared to ask questions, and that is reasonable. I get that. Like when you see scars on someone, it's insensitive to point them out, obviously, but also it's really nice to provide that platform and that safe space to be like, hey, like, we can talk about this and I will not judge you, because this is like your natural feelings. And to all those adults who are like, oh, but it's all in your head. Yeah, it is in my head. Where else would it be? Like it is. But that doesn't make it any less real.
Yeah. Well, and like I had this podcast with a friend. He had also lost his brother, and we were talking about it. And I think one of us had said like she was sick. And like that's a way of talking about, like, when people say mental health, they think it's all it's not like an actual illness. It's not a sickness, but it's a disease. Like being mentally unwell is a disease, and people need to treat it that way. Like they need to take it seriously. They need to realize that this is somebody who is not feeling well, and we need to respect them and like offer the help we would to somebody with a broken arm. Like there's no difference. I'm sorry, somebody who has depression and somebody who's broken their arm, they both need help. Like that's just it, right? And it's the same. Somebody could break their arm and not want help. You can't force somebody to have help, but at the end of the day, like medical help is needed.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, like the talking part is so important, and people don't want to be a burden, and people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want to be insensitive. But I think just talking about it is always going to be the best way.
Yeah. So if there's anything you can tell your friend, what would it be?
A million things. If I you always play that I wish I could go back in time and do this or say that, but I just wish I could tell her I love her one more time. I know nothing I say would change how she felt, and how heroic of me to think that I could have back when she first took her life. That was very like narcissistic of me to be like, oh, I wished I had have, done this because I would have saved her. Like that's not the case, which was another big pill to swallow, to know that I couldn't have. But I actually have her grad photo of my things. I'm talking to her right now, but I just would
never stop talking to her.
Right? Yeah. She was a really big part of my family, and she had kind of become like a adopted sister almost. She like spent so much time with my parents, and they were just as hurt when she took her life. And I would just tell her that I love her, and that she was never a burden, and that I would have talked to her no matter what. But I know that that decision she made was the decision she needed to make for herself. And there was a lot of anger, I think, too. Like I think a lot of people that go through it, and just from talking to like people that lost her as well, it's been like a common theme for all of us. So I can't obviously speak to other people's experiences with losing somebody to suicide, but I can share a lot of us that lost her. And there was anger. There was like this, how could you do this? How could you do this to us? And I think that through like the healing experience, it was like, oh, I love you. You needed to do this for yourself. We couldn't have changed your mind. And it's sad. It really is sad. Like nothing will take away from that, but there's just like healing moments of it.
I definitely agree that it was not on you, but I don't think it's narcissistic of you to think that, because I think when something as traumatic as that happens, I mean, it's not narcissistic at all. It's like, it's natural for humans to be like, I wish I could have done X, Y, Z. I mean, don't go back and ponder on those thoughts. Absolutely don't. Because again, like you said, she needed to do this for herself, but I wouldn't blame you for feeling the ways that you're feeling, because I mean,
totally.
So complex. Like we think of so many different things. There's so many different emotions that happen at the same time. We can be like healing, and we can be destructive, and we can be hurting, and then we can be happy all at the same time. And it's scary. That's like, we are very multifaceted, and that is difficult to maneuver around.
Yeah. Well, and like grief itself is so complex. And so she had actually lost her brother 2 years prior to testicular cancer, and that was kind of just a bit of a decline for her. And she has a younger brother, and we stay very in touch and stuff like that. And just even seeing the way that they both grieved losing the middle brother was so interesting. Like there's just such a different process in grieving people. And like some find peace and some don't. Like some just constantly wonder. And I think death is also like a super complex thing for people to comprehend. It's so final. Some of like, depending on what your beliefs are, some people can find peace through like a spirituality reasoning. Some of us just make up stories in our head to be able to cope with it easier. But yeah, it's really interesting just to see the way that each person deals with something like this differently.
And I feel like the fear of death comes from the fear of unknown and the fear of change, because I mean, let's face it, what happens after death? That's like the number one thing that people do not know. That's like the most debated question. No one knows what happens after. So it's only natural to be afraid of it, because it's plunging into this space of unknowing and like, just not knowing what the hell's going to happen. And like, where is she now? And what is she doing now? And I don't know about your beliefs, but I know that like I have my beliefs, and like I don't think that life is it after someone dies.
There's got to be more to it. Like we this is so magic. We live on a like spinning rock in the middle of the galaxy. Like how can there not be more? Like
Right?
it's so bizarre. And it's so, like I grew up in a very Christian home. We kind of step back from the church. There's a lot of like debate between like spirituality and religion, and we've definitely come into like our own spirituality now. And I think my parents said this as I was growing up as a little girl, and I was like, well, what if it's not real? You know, they said, well, isn't it better to feel like you've lived and believed and had faith in something growing up your whole life than to feel like you didn't believe in anything at all? And I think that that's been like my biggest lesson as an adult now, is like, it doesn't matter what you believe in, it's just better to believe in something.
Wow.
You know what? Like, which is so it doesn't matter what you believe in. I respect you for just believing in something, because it's really hard to do that.
It is hard to do that. I mean, I guess that kind of goes for like the bigger picture as well. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, who knows? Maybe you'll be attending the Met Gala next year. You don't know, but it's always more fun to believe in it than not to believe in it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Believe in yourself than not to believe in yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to believe that, you know, there's life out there. I want to believe that there's life after death. And I want to believe that butterflies are people reincarnated. And so I will.
Yeah, I want to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. And I think that's a pretty great, simple belief that, you know, helps me get through the day. You know, tomorrow is an entirely new day. And that's the thing. Like, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's all in our heads. And we don't know what happened. We do know what happened in the past, but that's all in our heads as well. So like this moment is the only real moment. And it's like, that's crazy to me. But going back to the beginning of this conversation, your friend and Moments in the Mountains, it's crazy because listening to that song, no one would know that story until they know that story.
Yeah.
But the main foundation of the song is like bringing me back home. And you say home a lot. So what does home mean to you?
Home used to mean a place, but now home means the people. And we actually, my fiance and I just recently bought a house in a different province. We're renovating it right now. So home will always be BC, but right now this was just like an opportunity for us to be able to afford a house, which is another whole topic. But home is when like my parents visit and I get to see my brother and my niece and my sister-in-law, and like it's the people around you that's home. It has nothing to do with the place anymore. Growing up, I think that's what I thought it was the mountains, but no, it's just it's your people. That's what home is to me.
It sounds like this song is a good place of home because it brings you back to your friend over and over every single time you listen to it, which is so nice. And I mean, your friend is obviously home as well, but like, it's nice that this song is like this little momentum that you can hold with you everywhere you go. And that's what I love about music. Like, I can listen to a song and be taken back to the age of 4 years old. And it's crazy. Like, music is a form of time travel.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Totally. It's so like that just resonated with me. I never thought of it like that, but that is so true. It connects people and it connects you with your past, and it's also like it's a time traveler to go like back, but it's also a way to see your future. Like I've just recently started listening to some like 1940s romance songs, and it's so easy to picture the future when you listen to that. I don't know why. Maybe it's just like we've got a ghost in our house and he's like, here you go, you know, this is what I lived, so this is your life. But something about music is also really easy to like see and envision what your future will be like as well. So that's so
I literally just came across a Billie Eilish song called My Future or The Future. I don't even remember, but it's literally about like, I'm so in love with my future and I don't even know what it is yet, but I'm just in love with her. And I was like, whoa, this made me think about my future and being like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next year, but this is so cool because I can be in love with something I don't even know yet.
Yeah. And I think that's also back to like the biggest trend on TikTok, which is like the manifesting thing. And it's so It's so commercial now, but it's
Yes.
so true. Like
It is. It's so commercial now. It's almost funny to see like use this sound and
oh, I know.
never
Those
will
ones are
happen
so
to you
funny.
by 5 o'clock. I'm like,
I know. I see those and I'm like, oh, next.
honestly, I see this and I'm like, oh my God.
But I'll just
Okay,
save
fine,
it.
let me
in
just
case.
try.
Yeah, right. You're like, I'll comment for good luck.
Literally. And it reminds me of chain mails way back when,
Yes.
like getting
yes.
those emails where it's like, if you don't send this to 15 other people, like this person's going to come and haunt you in your sleep.
Oh yeah, or like 5 of the closest people in your life will die, or like whatever that stuff was. But no, I do believe in the manifestation, and I feel like that is the whole future, and like picturing yourself. I just started reading this book called like Becoming Supernatural, and it's all about just like being positive. Like it's so crazy what changing the shift in the way that you think about yourself or the way that you think about your future, the things that you say. Like I've tried to stop being like, oh, I'll never make it, because I won't if I keep saying that.
Mhm.
If I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna make it happen, the things are gonna happen that need to happen, I'm gonna be successful, like those things will start to manifest. And yeah.
Well, I think that the common denominator between all of these manifesting videos is that it comes back to believing, just believing. And I think that like, as as like Tinkerbell as it sounds, it's like, just believe in yourself. But it's true, because when you believe in it, you start working towards it on a subconscious level without you even realizing it. And you put in that work and you believe in yourself and you keep going. Even when things get hard, you're like, but I believe in it. And the thing is, positivity and happiness, mind you, I'm a believer in toxic positivity. I think there's a time and place to not be positive, but
Yeah.
I think that positivity and happiness is a lot of work and it's a lot of energy, but at the end of the day, it is worth it. Because I mean, just last month, I lost a job, and it's so weird. My first thought, without even realizing, was, oh my God, that means the universe is making space for something even better in my life. And I just got so excited. And then like after an hour of excitement, I was like, what the hell? Am I excited over the fact that I lost a job?
What is happening to me right now? But that's so funny, because like that would take time to train yourself that's what you would think. Like most people would just be like, oh my God, I lost my job, I hate my life, and like spiral into this negative feeling. But that takes time to train yourself to be like, oh, this is a sign for something greater.
Oh yeah, it took a lot of training, and mind you, like I definitely went through a lot of turbulence to get there. It doesn't just happen. It definitely doesn't. But that's what I mean. It's like not even convincing yourself, but practicing happiness, gratitude, and positivity, even in the face of darkness and difficulty.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's worth it.
Well, I was talking to a friend. She's doing the 75 hard, which seems like another crazy plan experience all on its own. But she said one of the biggest, the 75 hard. Have you heard that? Where it's like you wake up every day before 6, you work out twice before 12, you drink a gallon of water, you read 10 pages of there's like this whole, list of, it's like a physical physical challenge, and then also like a mental challenge. But she said the biggest thing that she read the last 2 days was that anytime you think one negative thing about a person, you have to think 10 positive. And she's like, that is the hardest thing, because you bump into a stranger and you're immediately like, what the hell? You now have to come up with like 10 positive things about them. And she's like, it is so hard. It is so hard to do, but it totally changes. It like almost trains you to not think negatively about people, to be like, oh, okay, well, if I think negative, like it's going to be a lot more work for me to retrain myself to be positive. And so I just thought that was a really interesting concept, that like if we start training ourselves to like counterbalance the negativity, we'll just stop thinking the negativity, or like stop going there, because it's so easy. It comes back to like the self-indulgent, like when we're sad, it's like a lot easier to just continue to be sad than it is to get out of being sad.
Oh yeah.
It's like when you're angry, when you're negative, it's just a lot easier to keep going down that path than it is to be like, okay, let's pull back in, it's not that bad. You know what I mean? So
I think again, like feeling those anger, sadness, even jealousy, like all of these quote unquote ugly feelings, I think
they're important.
They're very important. Yeah, there's a reason our brains feel them. I mean, like some of them are even inherent, like fear. That's an inherent feeling that we're kind of born with. Like there's 2 things that we're afraid of when we're first born. I think one of them is like the fear of heights or something. I don't even remember, but
never grew out of it.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I guess some of us grow out of it, some of us don't, but
Yeah.
I love you. What are you going to do? Which is ironic because you like the mountains.
I know, right? I like the mountains, but like still on the ground, looking up at them.
But it's like, all of those feelings are very necessary to feel, and it's okay to feel them. I think it's just like, it's kind of like letting they talk about ego. So like a lot of people don't like ego and they're like, we got to get rid of the ego, but I don't think ego's bad necessarily. There's a reason we have an ego. I just think that the ego cannot be the driver. It's got to be the passenger.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with all our other feelings. It's like, we got to know who's the driver, who's going to be the driver today, and you can switch them out. You are in control of the car.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the balance of it all too. You know what I mean? Like that is so hard. And I've always said to myself, personally, just my own personal, I definitely choose my own happiness. It comes back to like those opportunities. Like you make a good opportunity if you want to make a good opportunity, and I can make a good day if I want to. And I've gotten better at like, I'm so bad for this. Like if I fight with my fiance, it's a lot easier to just be mad.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes I just want to like continue to be mad. He's like, what's wrong? Nothing. And you're like still mad. But it's a lot harder to be like, okay, well, this one particular moment that caused a fight is over. Why am I still mad? It's so much harder to just be like, okay, that's over. I'm done. We're moving on and we're going to have a good day. But it's so important for me. Like, and I know I can choose that moment and that like switch and that happiness for me, and to not waste the rest of my day being upset over something that is no longer affecting me. And that's totally just like my own personal experience. And that's not everybody's case. But I also know my mom is the same. We do the same because, generational. But like I can choose my own happiness. And I think that that's another reminder for myself to be able to do.
It's hard to choose happiness. It definitely doesn't just happen, but I definitely get what you mean. Like I'm the exact same way, where something will have passed, or even worse, something will happen. I'm like, oh, okay. And then a week later, I'm like, wait, I'm mad.
Yeah, right. Or like something will happen and you're like definitely not upset, but then you kind of replay the conversation. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah, this did upset me. And I'm just going to make you figure it out. And I'm like, why do I, it's so self-sabotaging.
It is self-sabotaging, but I think it's like, it's just a matter of, our minds catching up with what is going on. And like all of us work at such different paces. And I mean, it's not like we have a certain degree of control over our feelings, but it's not like we can just be like happy and then sad and then all of a sudden back to happy. I mean, it takes time to cope with
transition,
like, process them and like digest and then let them go.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I guess this is kind of like an abrupt conversational topic change, but I wanted to talk about who your biggest inspirations are when it comes to writing music.
To writing music. Oh, I don't know. Like that's so tough. I listen to everything now. I mean, I used to say I hated country, but I'll throw that on. I'll throw on some rap. I'll throw on some pop. I'll throw on some indie folk. So I think it's just like somebody that I feel like does like a perfect balance of that. And like everybody always says, oh, I'm inspired by Ed Sheeran, but like it's so true. Ed Sheeran is like such a perfect balance of like telling a story, creating a hooky song, getting people to cry, getting people to like imagine their past, present and future and all that. And so I just feel like that's, like an iconic inspiration. Julie Michaels does a really good job of that too. But then you have like, people like Amy Winehouse who had like such complex lyrics. You have, people like Miley Cyrus who like just does not give a shit. And you're just like, that is the vibe today. So, I mean, inspiration kind of just strikes wherever. And I guess it depends on who I wake up that morning as.
Oh my God, I'm so happy that you said that. So the other week I was chatting with my friend and I was like, I woke up and I was just washing my face and she's like, you seem like you're really thinking about something. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know who I am today. And she's like, what? I'm like, I don't know who I am today. She's like, that is such a weird thought. But like, I don't know. Every day I wake up and I'm like, I'm feeling like I don't give a shit. And then the next day I'm like, I feel very in my feels. And then the next day I'm like, I feel like a badass bitch. And then the next day, it just keeps going. It keeps going. And then like, I'm constantly changing. And that goes back to the fact that humans are so multifaceted and complex and that we are so many different people at the same time. Like it's crazy. One of your songs, Average, I love that song. Literally, it gives me like Lizzo feels. Like I'll be and I'm like, hell yeah, like this is amazing. I feel so like empowered right now.
Yes.
This guy is boring.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like again, I feel like that song reminds me of the same feelings as Lizzo gives me.
Yes.
Other music reminds me of other artists.
Yeah.
And reminds me of you, obviously, as an artist. All of them come back to you. You're the common denominator, obviously. But like I said, music inspires art. I mean, art inspires art. And it's really nice to see that connection between the music that we listen to and the artists that we listen to. And it's like it builds this community of people who are all feeling very similar ways and allow their audience to feel all these different similar ways. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I always hated like in the beginning of my music journey, I guess, people were always like, you need to find your sound. And I'm like, yeah, I need to find my sound and my brand. And like, that is so not true. No. We are so evolving and like life itself is moving so quickly and like what's trending is switching within like weeks. And I think TikTok's been kind of bad for that. Like we've definitely cultivated a one-hit wonder sort of environment. Yeah. But I think it's like it is okay to have identity crises every day. I do myself. Like I don't know if anybody else did this growing up, but I would be so heavily influenced by a movie. So like Pirates of the Caribbean. Hell yeah, I was gonna be a freaking pirate. Like nobody was gonna tell me no. Like that was my day. Like I like even to this, you know, point in my life, like I'm still super influenced by people. KJP, every time he comes up on my like my page, his like wanderlust fall autumn lifestyle, I'm like, I'm gonna become like a fall blogger. Like screw the music industry. This is like,
oh my god, yes.
Like it is so okay to be easily influenced by things like that. And I think
that's great. Like people inspire you. What? That's amazing. That's such a beautiful, I'm watching Big Bang Theory right now. And I catch myself embodying Sheldon.
Yes. Yes.
What am I saying? That is not something I normally say. What is going on?
Oh yeah. Like I think that's totally normal. Gilmore Girls does that for me. Like for some reason, I'm like, I'm going to move to a small town and open a diner. And I'm going to be so happy doing this. That's so not the case. Like it's also super toxic to think that like my life will be like a show, but it's okay to like, to try new things and to experience and create and like be inspired by different things. And it's the same with the music industry. I think that when you get stuck doing one thing, like it becomes very like for myself, it becomes like super scary to just be doing the same thing for the rest of my life. That's why Miley Cyrus inspires me some days to write like a bad bitch anthem, and then Ed Sheeran because I want to write something indie folky and poppy and like that makes everybody feel in their feels. And that's just like, I think that's the nature of being an artist or like a creative, that you just find inspiration in everything, and you don't need to find that lane. Like pick 500 and do them all if you want.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you are until you're not. So like you can be a freaking pop artist until you realize, oh, I'm inspired by this person. And then that motivates you to try country. And then all of a sudden you fall in love with something that you never even knew that you could love. And you don't know it until you try it. So I think it's totally okay to be inspired and motivated. Like you don't know that you're going to fall in love with owning a diner until you do.
Right? But no cell phones ever. You know, we're going to stick with the Gilmore Girls vibe. No cell phones.
Are you kidding me? When I was watching Gilmore Girls, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Harvard.
I know. I'm going to get bangs. You know, I'm going to get bangs and I'm going to start wearing like, you know, uniforms. Terrible. Children uniform would have never looked good on me. Yeah. And I'm too old to be, you know, a 16-year-old mom. So I could never be Lorelai. So I had to be Rory. Terrible, right? But yeah, that was me growing up. I'm sure my parents can also agree that I was heavily influenced by, you know, media around me, and I would change what I wanted to be every day. But that's just a part of.
It's beautiful, but also that is what makes social media and our phones very dangerous, because we're constantly chasing to become someone else.
Yeah,
there's a line between being inspired and becoming someone else, and that line is really, really thin one and really difficult to see. And mind you, like I've had moments where I wanted to become someone else so much that I embody too much of who they are, and then I lose the sense of me. When in reality, I could just be inspired and motivated and like learn from that person and like take the things that I've learned into my own personality and like try new things. But you shouldn't ever become entirely someone else. That's where the line is.
Yeah, that like obsession and inspiration are kind of like they're
Yeah.
both two super passionate things.
Yeah.
And I think we can get that emotion like super confused. I know I've been like caught up in the, oh my God, this creator wore this jacket, so like I should get this jacket because it'll make me successful. And
Yeah.
that's not the case, like talk about product placement, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Are you kidding? Do you remember that? Well, okay. I grew up on Hannah Montana and I just
Oh yeah.
that one episode of Hannah Montana where she says that she doesn't like carrots and now all of a sudden all of her fans are refusing to eat carrots.
Oh my gosh. There was so much where like we just you just follow it, right? Like and it's definitely still prevalent, like the garlic challenge where everybody was like doing like the sriracha and dill, like everybody just does it, you know what I mean? Like we're so influenced by TikTok where it's just like, well, if they're doing it, like I gotta, like it's relative, like if they're gonna jump off the bridge, of course I'm gonna do it. But I think that whole like coming back to like stepping back and like putting your phone away, like it's okay to spend some time and like to create, but also like getting back to going outside and like meeting people, and it's important to have like two different lives.
It's true. And do you remember when Taylor Swift came out in that song and she was like, old Taylor's dead?
Yeah.
And everyone got so mad. But now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, oh yeah, preach, girl. Like become whoever the hell you want to become.
Evolve.
Like, evolve. Like there's nothing bad with evolving. And people are going to tell you that it's bad and to slow down. And the worst thing that like, I remember people always told me as an insult, like, and you've changed. Yeah, bro. Oh. What the hell? If I'm not changing, then I'm not evolving.
Yeah, I think people are scared of change. Like those who make those comments are scared to do it themselves, and so it's probably like out of a jealousy thing, or like I can't believe you're changing and I'm not, or like so I think just do you know what I mean?
Change can be very scary, especially when it's unprepared change and it kind of like gets ripped out from underneath you and like all of a sudden life has to change. And I'm sure you can resonate with that feeling.
Oh yeah.
It's a hard one, but at the end of the day, it's also such a great one because it really evolves us and pushes us to our next level. Like it's like a little level up. Like if beat Bowser.
Right. If you never changed, you'd still be being influenced by Pirates of the Caribbean, and I would be waking up thinking I could be a pirate today. So like change is so important. And it's hard to appreciate it until you look back at like a bigger timeline and you're like, wow, when I was 4, I was such a different kid than I am at 24.
Oh, yeah.
That's because I changed. Like I evolved. I had experiences that made me who I am and opened up my eyes to like see new things and see them differently. And change is important. And I think it is hard, but it's everybody goes at their own pace too. Like that's the other thing. No human experience is ever going to be the same, and we all need to let everybody experience it at their own pace, their own way, and stop judging each other for it.
Oh my God. You're absolutely right. And with that, an hour just flew by.
Right?
So I'm going to wrap it up here, but is there anything else you would like to add?
I just wanted to say thanks. I think not everybody takes the time to look into the music industry and ask people what their opinion is on mental health. Like we're just sometimes a form of entertainment for others. So what you're doing is, like super important and really appreciated from the perspective of an artist.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really hope to have you again at some time.
Yes.
Like keep up with your changes.
Yes, I'm going to be a whole new person in like 6 weeks after I watch a Marvel series. I'll be a superhero or something.
Well, I'm excited to meet her.
Yes, me too.
All right. Have an amazing day, an amazing week.
Yeah, thank you so much. You too. And I can't wait to be able to share this when it comes out.